like, there's that voice in the back of your head, like right when you're about to do something brave, that little voice of fear.
Oh, yeah.
Well, today we're diving deep into a text that really speaks to that. It's called Bold and Fearless in Christ.
Okay.
And it's from 2 Timothy 1:7 to 10.
Oh, right.
Now, the really interesting thing about this is it was written by Paul. And at the time, he was actually imprisoned for his faith.
Oh.
And he's writing to his young friend Timothy,
Okay.
who himself is facing persecution.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine the pressure these guys were under.
Absolutely.
But even though it was written so long ago, what Paul says is surprisingly relevant to us today, even if we aren't, facing literal imprisonment.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It's amazing how these messages, written so long ago can still resonate with us today.
Yeah.
Because the context is ancient Rome.
Right.
But fear,
The human thing.
it is a human thing. It's a universal experience.
Yeah. And we all need courage. So let's jump right into the heart of this. Paul starts by saying, God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. Okay, power and love, those are big ones.
Right.
But self-control, what's that doing in there?
Yeah. That's interesting, isn't it? It might seem a bit out of place at first, but it's actually incredibly crucial.
Okay.
The word in the original Greek is sophronismos.
Okay.
And it actually translates more to soundness of mind.
Interesting.
So it's not just about willpower, it's about having a clear perspective. It's about keeping your eyes on the eternal, even when things are chaotic around us.
So it's like having that mental filter that helps us prioritize what really matters, not get swept away by, those daily anxieties.
That's a great way to put it.
Or even temptations.
Yeah,
Because those can lead to fear too.
absolutely. And think about it. When we're consumed by fear, we make impulsive decisions.
Right.
We don't think clearly, but when we have that sound mind, when we have that self-control, then we can actually pause. We can assess the situation.
Yeah.
And we can respond with courage and wisdom.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm starting to see the connection here. But how do we actually cultivate this sound mind? Like, how do we get better at self-control? Is that something we can learn? Can we practice it like a muscle?
That's a great question, and it's something that, we could probably talk about for hours.
Right.
But I think the passage itself hints at the answer.
Okay.
It talks about choosing faith over fear, right?
Yeah.
Actively embracing the spirit that God has given us.
Okay.
So it's about making these daily choices that really reflect our values, our priorities.
Okay.
Even in the small things,
Yeah.
Like choosing to speak kindly, even when you're stressed. Or, maybe resisting that temptation to overspend, even though it feels good in the moment. Those seemingly small acts of self-control, they can really build into something much bigger.
Yeah. It's like building those habits.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, this is where things get really interesting to me. Because Paul talks about not being ashamed of the gospel. And he even talks about suffering for it. But he's literally writing this letter from prison. How can he talk about boldness and strength when he's going through such extreme hardship?
Yeah. It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think what Paul is emphasizing here is that following Christ doesn't necessarily mean a life of ease, He's preparing Timothy and us for the reality that our faith might be tested. There's a great quote from Charles Spurgeon that I think speaks to this. He says, "There is no greater evidence of God's power than a believer who stands unshaken amid trials."
Wow, that's powerful. That's some powerful imagery right there. But, it's easy to read those words or hear those words and think, yeah, that sounds good in theory.
Right.
But when you're in the thick of it,
Yeah.
when fear is knocking at your door, how do you actually tap into that strength? Like, how do you become that unshakable believer?
That's where grace comes in.
Okay.
You see, Paul makes it very clear that this boldness, this strength, it's not something that we just conjure up on our own.
Okay.
It's rooted in God's grace, His unconditional love, and His purpose for us.
So it's not about earning our way.
No.
It's not about proving our worthiness. It's about accepting that we're already loved, chosen, and empowered to face whatever comes our way.
Exactly. And that changes everything. It takes the pressure off of us. It's not about striving to be good enough.
Right.
It's about recognizing that in God's eyes, we already are. And from that place of acceptance, that foundation of grace, that's where we can find the courage to be bold, even when we're afraid.
Now, Paul goes even further. He even talks about victory over death. And that image of Christ destroying death and bringing life and immortality to light is incredibly powerful. But what does that mean for us here and now?
It gives us an eternal perspective. It means that even when we face difficulties, even when fear is trying to grip us, we can hold on to this truth. Death has been defeated. Ultimate victory is already ours.
Wow.
And that knowledge, that can free us to live more boldly. It frees us to take risks for what we believe in. It frees us to make a difference in the world without being paralyzed by the fear of, oh, what if I fail? Or, oh, I don't know what's going to happen.
That's a powerful reminder. So if we can truly embrace that truth, how does that impact our daily lives? Like, what actually changes when we view life and even death through that lens of victory?
That's the question that I hope you, the listener, will ponder.
You heard it here, folks. We are equipped to overcome fear, stand strong in trials, and live out God's purpose with grace. Remember, Paul's message is timeless. So what does it mean for you to be bold and fearless in your own life? In your own context? What does that look like practically? For further reflection, you can check out the full written devotional. Until next time.